Have you ever wondered why the world seems to smell desperation like blood in the water? Why the more urgently you chase approval, love, success, the faster it seems to run from you? Understand this first truth. Desperation is a signal of weakness, and weakness is an invitation to be used. When you show the world that you need something too much, you place the blade in its hands and bare your own throat. The wise know that neediness is the surest way to surrender power before the battle even begins. The man who begs for acceptance, for attention, for affection, announces to the world that he is willing to pay any price, make any concession, sacrifice any principle just to belong. And what is cheaper, what is more worthless in the eyes of the powerful than someone willing to sell themselves for scraps of validation? Desperation is the currency of those who have forgotten their own worth. Watch carefully how people respond to you when you seem too eager, too available, too hungry for their yes. They recoil, they hesitate, they weigh what they can take from you. Because the desperate man has no leverage, no mystery, no resistance. He is an open ledger, ready to be written upon. You think you are buying closeness with your constant agreement, your pliability, your unconditional support, but you are selling your dignity at a discount no one respects. Machiavelli would tell you, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the desperate man is neither feared nor loved. He is pitied at best, ridiculed at worst, but always disrespected, because he has already declared that he will tolerate anything for even the illusion of connection. Reflect on this. What do you truly offer when you offer yourself without boundaries, without pause, without standards, without cost? Nothing of value, for what is abundant is easily ignored. What is always accessible becomes invisible. The world desires what resists, what challenges, what demands something in return. The desperate man kills his own value by refusing to make others earn him. He thinks that by giving more, he will secure loyalty. But loyalty does not grow in the soil of desperation. It thrives in the space of mutual respect, in the silent understanding that neither will debase themselves for the other's approval. The desperate man knows no such silence. He fills every void with words, with apologies, with frantic reassurance, with endless justification. In doing so, he reveals his deepest fear, that without these performances, he will not be chosen, he will not be loved, he will not be enough. Do you see the trap? Desperation is not merely unattractive, it is strategically fatal. It exposes your true weakness to anyone who would exploit it. The negotiator who cannot walk away loses all bargaining power. The lover who cannot endure solitude becomes a slave to the whims of the beloved. The friend who cannot say no becomes a tool, not a companion. The employee who fears losing the job will accept every indignity. Desperation blinds you to your own agency. It convinces you that the other side holds all the cards, when in truth, the willingness to withdraw is your greatest leverage. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must know how to be both lion and fox, strong enough to fight, cunning enough to evade, but the desperate man is neither. He is the sheep that announces himself to wolves. Ask yourself now, where in your life are you broadcasting desperation? In your words, your silences, your need to be seen, to be understood, to be validated at any cost? Who has learned to press those buttons? Who profits from your inability to endure discomfort, to sit with rejection, to walk away from what insults your soul? The desperate man cannot bear the idea of being misunderstood, so he overexplains. He cannot tolerate absence, so he clings. He cannot stand the possibility of losing, so he never risks anything that might truly matter. And in avoiding these discomforts, he lives a half-life, controlled, predictable, easy prey for those who need someone to manipulate. For those who know that the surest way to rule another is to make them fear solitude. But there is another way, a darker, more disciplined path. It is the cultivation of unavailability, not as cruelty, but as sovereignty. It is the art of being willing to say no without apology, to let others be disappointed, to hold your silence when explanations would only feed their power over you. It is the practice of appearing indifferent even when you care, of masking your intentions, of never revealing your full hand. For if people see how badly you want something, they will test you, push you, make you prove it by sacrificing your principles. And once you sacrifice your principles for anything, a relationship, a job, approval, you will continue to sacrifice them forever. The first compromise opens the door to countless others. Desperation is the seed of self-betrayal. Machiavelli understood that a ruler must sometimes appear generous while remaining ruthless within. that you must know when to show mercy and when to show steel. But the desperate man knows only one face, pleading. He cannot command respect because he cannot respect himself. He cannot inspire loyalty because he cannot enforce boundaries. He cannot lead because he cannot stand alone. And so he is led. He is commanded. He is shaped by every stronger will around him. This is not merely a moral failing. It is a strategic catastrophe. For life is a contest of power, of influence, of negotiation. The man who cannot withhold himself will always be at the mercy of those who can. Consider this. True power is not in reacting, but in choosing your reaction. It is not in being available, but in making your presence rare. It is not in proving your worth, but in knowing it so deeply that you never feel compelled to advertise it. Desperation is noise. Calm is signal. Desperation is chaos. Silence is strategy. When you stop announcing your need, you force others to wonder what you want, what you will accept, what you might refuse. That uncertainty is leverage. That mystery is value. And value is what people respect, even when they resent it, even when they call you cold, distant, arrogant. Remember this, the accusations of those who can no longer control you are nothing but the dying cries of their own entitlement. So I ask you now, look carefully at the places in your life where you have confused availability with love, compliance with loyalty, sacrifice with virtue. Ask yourself, who benefits from your fear of being alone? Who profits from your eagerness to please? And who will remain once you begin to withdraw, to set limits, to demand respect? Do you have the stomach to be misunderstood, even hated, in the name of your own freedom? Because that is the price of power. That is the cost of being your own master. And in the end, it is the only price. Most people will never dare to ask themselves why they crave acceptance so badly. They will never admit that their eagerness to please is nothing but fear dressed up as kindness. They will tell themselves they are being generous, empathetic, understanding, when in truth, they are terrified of conflict, terrified of disapproval, terrified of being alone with themselves. Desperation is clever in this way. It wears the mask of virtue. It says, look how good you are, always saying yes, always forgiving, always available. But the world sees through this performance. It sees not goodness but weakness, and weakness invites exploitation. It is the unspoken contract of the desperate. I will give you what you want if you promise not to leave me. I will betray myself if you promise to stay. And in this bargain, you lose everything worth keeping, your dignity, your self-respect, your freedom. You think the cost of saying no is too high, but you never calculate the cost of your endless yes. You never count the hours wasted in conversations you hate, the energy drained by people who do not value you, the rage you swallow, the nights you lie awake rehearsing arguments you were too afraid to have. Desperation keeps you polite when you should be firm. It makes you smile when you should walk away. It teaches you to pacify when you should confront, and in time, you forget how to do anything else. You become the person others expect you to be, not because they respect you, but because they know you fear their rejection more than you love your own peace. Machiavelli would say, it is better to be hated for your strength than loved for your weakness. For in hatred, there is at least respect, but in pity, there is only contempt. Look at how people test you. They push your boundaries. They provoke your emotions. They watch your reactions. They want to see if you will hold the line or collapse. And every time you collapse, you teach them exactly how to control you. Desperation is predictable. It is the pattern of someone who will always choose acceptance over authenticity. Someone who will lie to themselves just to keep others comfortable. And once you become predictable, you become manageable, controllable, obedient. You may think you are being compassionate, but true compassion cannot exist without self-respect. To love others without losing yourself, that is the real art. But the desperate know nothing of art, only the crude transaction of approval for submission. What would happen if you stopped explaining yourself? If you stopped apologizing for your needs? If you refused to justify your boundaries? Silence is unbearable for the manipulator, because in silence there is no foothold, no handle to twist. The desperate man fills silence with concessions. He cannot endure the discomfort of not being understood. He begs to be seen in the best light. But power lies in indifference to misunderstanding, in the willingness to let others think you are harsh, cold, arrogant, selfish. Only when you can tolerate their disapproval can you reclaim your freedom. Because the opinions of others are the chains that desperation forges around your will. You will never be free until you learn to wear their scorn like armor. Consider the lover who never says no, who forgives every betrayal, who waits by the phone trembling for a reply. Is that love, or is it slavery? Consider the employee who accepts every extra task, who never negotiates salary, who smiles through every insult. Is that loyalty, or is it fear? Consider the friend who is always available, always listening, always absorbing everyone else's pain. Is that kindness, or is it self-erasure? Desperation is the lie you tell yourself to justify your fear of being alone. But let me tell you this, there is nothing more dangerous than a person who has made peace with solitude, a person who is willing to lose anyone who demands their submission. Because when you are no longer afraid to be alone, you cannot be blackmailed with abandonment. When you are willing to walk away, you are ungovernable. And that is the nightmare of every manipulator, every opportunist, every false friend and conditional lover in your life. They will tell you you've changed. They will accuse you of being distant, cold, selfish. But these are not reflections of your betrayal. They are confessions of their own dependence on your weakness. Machiavelli knew that appearances matter, but he also knew that you must never let appearances rule you. Control your image, yes, but never become its prisoner. The desperate man is the prisoner of his own mask, forever performing the role that will please his audience. Ask yourself, who taught you to be desperate? Whose approval did you learn to chase? Whose love felt conditional? What part of you decided that being wanted was worth more than being respected? Trace the origin of this hunger, because it is not natural. It is taught, conditioned, enforced by a society that rewards compliance and punishes defiance. A society that tells you to be nice, to be agreeable, to be available at all times. But nice is not kind, agreeable is not noble. Availability is not love. It is the strategy of those who have been trained to serve at the expense of themselves. And until you see this, you will remain the willing servant of anyone with the nerve to demand your sacrifice. Machiavelli would advise you to learn to walk alone, not because solitude is easy, but because it is necessary. In solitude, you learn who you are without the distortion of others' expectations. You learn to hear your own thoughts without interruption. You learn to respect your own time, your own energy, your own peace. And only then can you re-enter the world as a sovereign, not a supplicant. Only then can you choose your alliances, your loves, your loyalties without fear of losing yourself. Desperation cannot survive in the mind of someone who values themselves more than the approval of others. And that self-valuation is not arrogance. It is the foundation of all real power. So look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I willing to endure the loneliness required to be free? Am I willing to lose the applause of the crowd to hear the quiet truth of my own conscience? Am I willing to be misunderstood if it means being true? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the dividing line between the ruled and the ruler, between the one who chases and the one who chooses, between the desperate and the disciplined. If you would be the latter, you must first kill the former within you, because no one can exploit you unless you give them the weapon of your own need, and no one can command you unless you have already surrendered your own authority. Do you know why so many people cling to their desperation even when it humiliates them? Because it feels safer than the unknown. It is a predictable prison. The desperate man fears the emptiness that comes when he says no. He fears the silence that follows his withdrawal. He fears the loss of people who never truly valued him. And so he settles for crumbs, convincing himself it is a feast. He tells himself he is patient, understanding, good-hearted. But in truth, he is afraid. Afraid of being alone in his own company. Afraid of confronting the raw questions that arise in solitude. Who am I when no one needs me? What is my worth when I offer nothing? What remains of me when I stop performing? These are the questions that desperation avoids at any cost, because their answers demand transformation. Consider the man who can never be alone for a single evening without filling the void with noise. Conversations he doesn't care about, obligations he doesn't enjoy, relationships that drain him. He claims he is social, connected, caring, but truly he is terrified of the silence that would force him to see his own unmet needs, his own unhealed wounds. Desperation is the constant flight from the self. Machiavelli would warn that a ruler who cannot govern himself cannot hope to govern others. In the same way, a person who cannot sit with his own solitude will always be ruled by those who promise to fill it. He will trade freedom for comfort, dignity for company, power for distraction. Desperation is clever at disguising itself. It says, "I'm just being polite. I'm just trying to help. I'm just keeping the peace." But peace bought at the cost of your principles is not peace. It is surrender. It is the quiet agreement to remain small, so others won't feel threatened. It is the vow to dim your light so others don't feel blind. It is self-betrayal sold as virtue, and the world rewards this betrayal temporarily. You will be praised for being so easy, so agreeable, so dependable, until the moment you need something. Then you will see how quickly that praise turns to dismissal, because those who love your desperation will always hate your independence. They will tolerate your sacrifices so long as they benefit from them, but show them a boundary, and you will see their true face. Ask yourself, who are the people in your life who only love you when you make no demands? Who applaud your loyalty only when it is unconditional? Who call you selfish the moment you assert your needs? These are the ones who have built their comfort on your desperation. They are not partners, they are parasites. They do not want you, they want what you give them. Your time, your energy, your validation, your willingness to bleed for their ease. And they will never tell you to stop because they benefit from your ignorance. Machiavelli would say that those who profit from your weakness will always encourage you to remain weak, because your strength threatens the foundation of their power over you. Desperation is not just unattractive, it is dangerous. It signals to the unscrupulous that you are ripe for exploitation. They do not need to use force or threats. They need only what you offer yourself. The world has no shortage of those who will accept that offer with open hands and cold hearts. They will take everything you give until there is nothing left, and then blame you for being empty. The desperate man is the perfect victim because he refuses to see himself as one. He insists he is generous, caring, loving. But generosity without discernment is waste. Caring without limits is self-harm. Love without self-respect is servitude. And the world will happily consume the offerings of the desperate while sneering at them for being so easy to devour. But there is another way. A way that is colder, yes, harder, certainly, but also freer. It is the path of selective presence, the discipline of strategic silence, the cultivation of boundaries so clear they cannot be mistaken for anything but self-respect. It is the art of saying no without apology, of enduring disappointment without explanation, of valuing your own time so highly that others must prove themselves worthy of it. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the refusal to participate in your own exploitation. The desperate man cannot conceive of this. He believes that to deny is to offend, that to withdraw is to betray, that to protect himself is to harm others. But these are lies told by those who fear the day you wake up. Because when you wake up, everything changes. You stop performing, you stop pleading, you stop explaining. You say, "This is what I offer, this is what I will accept, this is where I end," and you begin. And those who loved your desperation will rage at your independence. They will call you difficult, arrogant, selfish. Let them. Their anger is proof of the control they are losing. Machiavelli would counsel, let them speak, let them slander, but do not yield. For your goal is not their approval, but your own freedom. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Your silence is your strength. Your refusal is your power. Your boundary is your crown. Look carefully at your own life. Where have you given too much? Where have you stayed too long? Where have you bitten your tongue so others wouldn't feel discomfort? And what did it buy you? Peace? Or resentment? Connection? Or emptiness? Love? Or obligation? The desperate man cannot answer these questions honestly because to do so would mean acknowledging his own complicity. It would mean seeing that he chose the easy path of submission over the hard path of self-respect. But you are not bound to remain desperate forever. You can choose differently. You can choose the discomfort of honesty over the comfort of deceit. You can choose to be alone rather than misused. You can choose to be silent rather than beg. You can choose to be sovereign rather than subservient. So I ask you now, not as an accuser, but as a mirror, are you ready to disappoint those who have built their comfort on your desperation? Are you ready to be seen as cold if it means finally being respected? Are you ready to be alone if it means finally being free? Because that is the price, and only those willing to pay it will ever know the taste of true autonomy. The world does not give you permission to be free. You must take it, and you must defend it, even from those who say they love you, especially from those who say they love you. Because love that demands your desperation is not love at all. It is control, and you were not born to be controlled. Most people will never tell you this, but the world respects those who can walk away more than those who will do anything to stay. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it is a truth all the same. The man who can endure rejection without begging for another chance. The woman who can bear solitude without filling it with false intimacy. The friend who can say no without drowning in guilt. These are the ones who command respect without demanding it. Because the ability to walk away is the ultimate proof that you will not be held hostage by need. Desperation cannot coexist with power. One must kill the other. And if you want power over your own life, you must be willing to slaughter your need to be needed. Understand this. Those who seek to use you will always test your desperation. They will see how quickly you reply, how eagerly you explain, how badly you want their approval. They will give you crumbs of attention and watch how grateful you become. They will withdraw affection to see if you chase. They will criticize you to see if you justify yourself. These are not accidents, they are calculations. Machiavelli knew that people are rarely honest about their intentions. They prefer manipulation to confrontation. They prefer subtlety to declaration. And desperation is the lever that moves you without ever appearing to push. You think you are free, but you dance to the tune of their withheld approval. Look at how society itself teaches you to be desperate. The endless marketing that tells you you are not enough. The relationships that demand you prove your worth with constant availability. The jobs that expect your loyalty without reciprocity. Even family can teach you that love is conditional, that your value depends on how well you perform the role they have chosen for you. From childhood, you learn to say yes to avoid punishment, to smile to avoid conflict, to stay silent to avoid rejection. And these lessons harden into habits so deep you forget they were ever choices. You become an adult who apologizes for existing, who explains every boundary, who feels guilty for resting, and the world benefits from this, because the desperate are easy to govern. Machiavelli would tell you that to rule others, you must first rule yourself. But most people have no rule over themselves. Their emotions command them. Their fears direct them. Their need to belong overrides their reason. They cannot say no because they cannot stand the idea of being alone. They cannot assert themselves because they cannot bear being seen as difficult. They cannot walk away because they have built their entire identity around being needed. And so they become useful, predictable, exploitable, the perfect subjects for anyone with even a little more will. This is not just unfortunate, it is tragic, because they have the power to choose differently but refuse the discomfort of that choice. Ask yourself, when was the last time you said no without explaining why? When was the last time you chose silence over justification? When was the last time you let someone be disappointed in you without rushing to repair their feelings? These are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of liberation. Because every explanation you offer is another thread in the web of your own enslavement. The desperate man believes he must be understood at all costs, but power lives in the refusal to be deciphered, in the mystery of your unspoken thoughts, in the ability to withhold your intentions. Let others wonder, let them doubt, let them rage, but do not yield. For yielding is the favorite sport of the desperate, and it is always played to their loss. Consider the energy you have wasted in your life managing other people's emotions, the hours spent crafting careful responses, the nights lost to worry over what they think of you, the days performing roles you never chose for yourself. Desperation is a thief that robs you of your time, your peace, your authenticity. And the worst part, you handed it the keys. No one can make you desperate without your consent. No one can demand your submission without your participation. You trained them to expect your obedience by offering it freely. And so the first act of reclaiming yourself is to stop. Stop explaining. Stop apologizing. Stop offering. Stop managing the comfort of those who would never do the same for you. This will not make you popular. It will not make you loved by all. In fact, it will enrage those who depended on your compliance. They will accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of being ungrateful. They will call you cold, distant, arrogant. Let them. Their anger is the sound of chains breaking. Machiavelli would say, do not fear being hated if you are respected, for hatred can be managed, but contempt cannot. And nothing breeds contempt faster than desperation. You cannot make everyone love you, but you can make them respect you. And respect begins with the willingness to be disliked for the sake of your own integrity. So look around you. Who benefits from your desperation? Who has built comfort on your sacrifice? Who would be most threatened by your refusal to explain, your decision to withdraw, your silence in place of performance? These are the ones who will resist your transformation most fiercely. They will try to drag you back to the old agreements where you gave everything and asked nothing, where you explained every no until it sounded like a yes, where you managed their comfort while destroying your own. And you must be ready for that fight, because it is a fight for your soul, for your freedom, for the right to exist without justification. Ask yourself now, with brutal honesty, what would happen if you stopped being desperate, if you stopped chasing, if you let those who would abandon you? What would remain? Who would stay? What would you discover about yourself in the silence that followed? These are the questions the desperate man refuses to ask because the answers demand courage. They demand sacrifice. They demand the death of who you were so that you might become who you are meant to be. And that death is terrifying, but it is also necessary because there is no rebirth without it. Most will never have the courage to endure that death. They will cling to their old habits like a drowning man to a sinking ship. They will keep saying yes when their soul screams no. They will keep explaining, apologizing, justifying, until their voice is no longer their own. They will convince themselves that this is love, that this is loyalty, that this is kindness. But it is none of those things. It is desperation masquerading as virtue. It is fear with a pretty mask. And the world is perfectly content to let them believe the lie because the world thrives on the desperate. The economy, relationships, institutions, all are built on those too afraid to say enough. Machiavelli would say, the first step to ruling others is to ensure they never rule themselves. And nothing keeps a man in chains more securely than his own fear of being alone. Look at how the desperate shape their entire lives around others. Their schedules, their moods, their priorities are dictated by those they hope to please. They cannot rest if someone is unhappy with them. They cannot focus if someone disapproves. They cannot choose if someone might say they are wrong. And so they live in reaction, not creation. They mirror what others want. They echo what others believe. They become shadows in their own lives. You see it in the friend who never has an opinion of their own, in the partner who tolerates betrayal to avoid conflict, in the employee who accepts abuse because they need the paycheck, in the child who becomes the perfect student, the perfect sibling, the perfect lie. Desperation is the art of forgetting yourself so thoroughly you don't even remember you're lost. Machiavelli would warn that the worst ruler is the one who cannot see his own prison, because he will mistake his chains for jewelry. He will call his submission peace. He will defend his own captors, and the desperate do this every day. They defend the people who use them. They justify the systems that exploit them. They tell themselves it is normal to be tired, to be drained, to be invisible. They will fight you if you try to wake them up, because waking up would mean admitting how much they have lost, how much they have given away, how much they have betrayed themselves just to belong. And that truth is unbearable for most. Easier to keep performing, easier to keep smiling, easier to stay desperate. But you, if you're listening, are not most people, or you wouldn't be here. Something in you knows there is another way. A harder way, yes, but an honest one. One that demands you reclaim every part of yourself you sold for approval, that you find your voice where you once stayed silent, that you choose your peace over their comfort. This path will cost you. You will lose people. You will be called selfish, cold, difficult. You will feel guilt so heavy it tries to drag you back to your old life. But let me tell you now that guilt is the price of freedom. It is the echo of your old programming, screaming as you kill it. Do not mistake that pain for wrongdoing. It is proof you are changing. Ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? What do you believe when no one is telling you what to think? What do you want when you stop asking what is allowed? These questions are knives that cut away the rot of desperation. They leave you raw, exposed, vulnerable, but they also make you real. And in a world built on performance, authenticity is revolutionary. Machiavelli would tell you, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But even more importantly, it is better to be respected than pitied. The desperate man is always pitied. He elicits sympathy, yes, but never respect. And what good is sympathy when it is given only because you refuse to stand up? Consider what happens when you finally say no. when you decline the invitation you never wanted, when you refuse the task that is not yours to carry, when you withdraw your energy from those who take and never give, the world will react. Those who loved your desperation will rage. They will call you ungrateful, arrogant, selfish. Let them. Their accusations are confessions. They are telling you, you were easier to control before. You were more useful when you had no boundaries. You were better when you put yourself last. Good. Let them mourn the version of you that served them. That version has died, and in its place stands someone they cannot exploit. Because when you are no longer desperate, you become unpredictable. You are no longer a puppet whose strings anyone can pull. You are no longer a mirror for their insecurities. You are no longer the emotional sponge for their chaos. You are yourself, and that self is sovereign. It is not for sale. It is not available on demand. It is not explained or justified or softened to make others comfortable. It simply is. And in that being, there is power. Power that does not shout. Power that does not beg. Power that simply refuses to move unless it chooses to. Machiavelli would say, that is the kind of power that rules, not the kind that serves. So I ask you now, not to shame you but to awaken you. Where are you still performing? Where are you still explaining? Where are you still begging for scraps of validation? Look there. That is where you are giving away your power. That is where you are selling your soul at a discount. That is where you must begin. Because no one will give you permission to change. No one will thank you for setting boundaries that inconvenience them. No one will celebrate your freedom if it costs them their control. You must choose it anyway. You must endure their anger, their confusion, their silence, and you must let them go if they cannot accept the price of your authenticity. You will discover, in the end, that the world you feared would reject you for saying no was never truly yours to begin with. Those who vanish when you stop explaining were never listening. Those who turn cold when you stop giving were never warm. Those who accuse you of selfishness when you set a boundary were only ever invested in your self-betrayal. Machiavelli would say, better to be hated for your truth than loved for your lies. Because the love you win by sacrificing yourself is not love at all. It is a transaction in which you pay with your peace, your time, your soul, and one day you wake up with nothing left to sell, surrounded by those who never valued you for anything but your willingness to bleed. Understand this clearly. The price of freedom is loneliness. Not forever, but for a time. There will be evenings where you sit in the silence you once filled with noise. There will be mornings where you feel the absence of people who only loved you when you performed. There will be moments when you doubt your choice, when you question if it is better to be used than to be alone. And in those moments, desperation will come to you like an old friend, whispering lies in your ear. It will tell you to apologize for being difficult, to explain yourself just one more time, to say yes so you don't have to feel the discomfort of no. But you must not listen, because that discomfort is the birth pain of your true self. Look at the world around you. How many live half-lives, always in reaction, always in fear? How many smile when they want to scream? How many agree while their heart rebels? How many stay where they are dying because they cannot bear to walk alone? This is the tragedy of desperation. It turns the living into ghosts, present but not seen, speaking but never heard, moving but without direction, and all because they refuse to endure the sharp but honest pain of standing alone. Machiavelli would remind you, a prince must learn to be both lion and fox, strong enough to fight, cunning enough to wait. But desperation is neither. It is the bleating of sheep asking to be spared. But you are not sheep, or you would not be here, listening. You are here because you want something different, something harder but cleaner. You want to know the taste of your own power, not borrowed from others, but forged in your own solitude. You want to speak words that are yours, not echoes, to act from choice, not fear, to love because you want to, not because you have to. This is not easy. It is not painless. It will cost you every lie you have told yourself to stay comfortable. It will cost you relationships that depended on your silence. It will cost you the approval of those who only liked you when you were convenient. But in that loss there is gain. In that death there is life. Because what remains after you stop being desperate is the only thing that was ever real. You, not the you they shaped. Not the you they praised for being easy. Not the you who bit his tongue and bowed his head, but the you who knows what he wants and what he will not accept. The you who can say no without explanation. The you who can say yes without obligation. The you who does not trade peace for company or truth for approval. This you will be rarer. Fewer will understand you. Fewer will claim you. But those who do will do so without illusion, without condition, without needing you to be anything but yourself. And what of those who hate you for changing? Let them. Their hatred is a mirror reflecting the parts of themselves they refuse to confront. Your refusal to perform forces them to see their own need for validation. Your silence demands they listen to the noise within themselves. Your boundaries reveal the places they have none. Machiavelli would say, make your enemies respect you, even if they cannot love you. And those who cannot respect you, let them leave, for they were never truly with you. They were only with the role you played. Mourn that if you must, but do not resurrect it. Do not go back to the grave of who you were, just because someone else preferred you dead. So ask yourself, one last time, are you willing to be alone if it means being whole? Are you willing to lose what was never real to gain what is unshakable? Are you willing to trade their comfort for your peace? This is not a question for the desperate. It is a question for the free, for those who have decided that the price of approval is too high if it costs you yourself. And if you find within you even a spark of readiness to pay that price, then you have already begun. You have already taken the first step out of the prison of need, and you will not walk alone forever. Because in that silence, in that space you create by refusing to fill it with lies, you will meet yourself. And when you do, you will understand that the respect you so desperately chased from others was always yours to give. So if you are ready, say nothing, prove nothing, explain nothing, simply begin. Let the world adjust to your absence where you once overperformed. Let them wonder, let them rage, let them leave. And in their leaving, let there be room for those who can sit with your truth, who do not fear your silence, who do not need your desperation to feel strong, because that is the only love, the only loyalty, the only alliance worth having. And it can only be found when you choose to be whole over being wanted, when you choose to be free over being understood, when you choose, finally, to be yourself. If you have made it this far, it's because a part of you is already prepared to choose a different path. A part of you knows that being accepted at the cost of your truth is not love, it's submission. That real self-respect begins the moment you choose yourself, even if it means standing alone for a while. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even hated in the name of your own freedom? Are you willing to pay the price of being fully yourself? If this message spoke to you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I choose my freedom. Let's see how many here are ready for this transition. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's more important than you realize. See you there.